Hi, Shirley. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you. You have done quite a bit in helping families and women. You are the founder of Pilates Online, an international certified Pilates bar and Hatha yoga instructor, and you're also a certified health coach, and you specialize in women's health, specifically prenatal and postpartum.
Yes, I've had a big array of experience in all those areas.
And how did you get into all that? Can you give us like a little of your personal background story?
Yeah, great. I was working in corporate and first got into Pilates when I tried it out myself just to see what all the rage was about, this new, exercise that all the celebrities were doing. And once I tried it, I just loved the feeling. I felt amazing after. The sort of mind-body connection was new for me. So never stopped really after that. And that was 18 years ago. Oh, that was teaching 18 years ago, I should say. Started probably about 4 years before that. And have taught pre and postnatal women right from the beginning. It's definitely a great form of exercise to do when you're pre and postnatal. So a lot of my experiences with different age groups, different fitness levels of clients, and one of my favorite clientele are pre and postnatal women. So it's definitely a passion of mine, and I continue to this day to keep studying and learning new things. It's a great industry to be in.
What is the difference between Pilates and yoga?
Oh, good question. The main difference, I think, to describe is the yoga is a little bit more focused on the spirituality side of things, and Pilates is a little bit more the physical, even though we do both have a mind-body connection exercise. It's definitely, yoga has its roots in a bit more spirituality. Both strengthen and improve flexibility. So you can definitely improve in those areas doing both. For Pilates focuses a lot more on core strength. So we do focus on the abdominals and the areas that surround the spine, like glutes, back, shoulders. And I think yoga probably is a bit more about the flexibility, and we do a lot more standing work. So that's probably the easiest way to describe the difference. But it is a question that comes up a lot. And often yoga is, depending on the style, is done, quite a bit is done standing, and Pilates is often done, quite a bit of it is on the floor or lying. So a few differences there.
And I think that's something that, if you're expecting a baby or just had a baby, like those are the target areas that most people are concerned about during that time.
Absolutely. And Pilates focuses a lot on the core, as I mentioned, but also pelvic floor. And obviously, that is definitely an area that we need to stay strengthened as women, and even men, believe it or not. And I think even if you haven't had children, it's important to focus on the pelvic floor. So, yeah. And also Pilates focuses a lot on the posture as well. So we tend to, when we're obviously, pregnant and also giving, breastfeeding, when we've given birth, we tend to sometimes get in a more forward hunched posture. So Pilates is great for that as well.
I know the number one complaint for most parents when they're going through pregnancy is back pain. And then, of course, you sneeze too hard or you laugh too hard and you have to end up running to the bathroom because there's just so much pressure on your pelvic floor.
Absolutely. And this can happen, early years or later in life. Obviously, it's something common for a lot of women. And the back pain can sometimes happen during pregnancy because obviously the weight of the baby, we start to get in a little bit more arched back position. So support of the core is really essential to support that, obviously the weight, of the baby, because our posture changes. And then postnatally, we definitely, obviously have had changes, in the pelvic floor area. So keeping that strong and supple is really important. Like you say, to avoid any leaking when sneezing or coughing. So yeah, keeping that area strong and supple is definitely important.
And on your website, you say that you teach Pilates and bar. What is the bar class?
Okay. Yeah, the bar's lots of fun. It's kind of, I like to describe it as Pilates on steroids or amplified. It's like a much harder, stronger, I guess, workout than Pilates in a different way. It's a little bit more intense. It has a bit more overload, so you'll feel a lot more of the burn, and it's a really good thing for women who are pregnant as well, because we do a lot of work standing and strengthening the legs. We still focus on the core, so when you are pregnant, it's a little bit going into second and third trimester, it's not as easy to do the training lying down. So our standard Pilates exercises are not always the best during the second and third trimester. We often do it sitting on a fit ball so that you're upright and you have a little bit more freedom that way. But bar is great because you can be standing and do a lot of it in standing position. We do a lot of hand weight sort of training as well in bar. So we strengthen and turn the upper body and the arms, which is always nice to keep strong before you have to hold your baby in the last trimester. So yeah, both are a great mix, actually.
There's a lot of literature saying that Pilates, yoga too, but general like strengthening of that abdominal, the back, the legs, can help with the actual birth process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
For sure. I specialize in both Pilates and yoga, and pre and postnatal Pilates and yoga, and I love the combination. I do find that the yoga is a really nice way to have the mums focus a little bit more internally, to really think about the mindset side of things. So we do a lot of visualization in my classes. We do a lot of opening through the hips, and it really does help, obviously, during the birth process. So it makes it a lot easier to, get into certain positions if need be. Ideally, we want to feel a little bit more open in the hip area, feel comfortable in those open positions. And so practicing yoga does help to get to those positions a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Right, because we know that like pushing upright helps the baby move down easier. But, if you're not used to squatting or doing those movements and you have very limited mobility, it might be harder for you during your labor to squat on the bed or on a birthing chair if you haven't been doing that generally in your life or during the pregnancy.
Actually, we use the fit ball, which is fantastic for exactly this point. We get the mothers into great positions so that they feel comfortable during labor. So they can be folding over the fit ball, opening through the pelvic and the groin area, and just doing certain movements with the fit ball is a really great way to, feel comfortable pre-labor, so that when you go into labor, you can almost know these movements unconsciously, so you can go into them, comfortably, and you've practiced them a lot before you get into labor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know with my first baby, I had an epidural with her and I gave birth on my back, and she was a little over 7 pounds, but my next two were over 9 pounds. But because I was able to birth upright in kind of like a squat, they actually came out a lot easier than
That's amazing.
The 7-pound baby.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine,
awesome.
especially with my second, when I gave birth in the squatting position, I can't imagine giving birth in any other position. It just made it so much easier. And I'm grateful that I had the mobility and the flexibility to do that. I think I was even more mobile and flexible back then than I am now during the pregnancy. But it's a lot of moving. Like, I feel like we don't move around like we used to. Like, we used to be foraging for plants and picking crops. And now we sit in our, rocking chairs or our big armchairs, and we lean back a lot. So we have a lot more of breech babies transverse sunny side up positions that makes it harder to push. But if you're
so true.
Mobile, upright, moving during pregnancy, it's definitely helpful. But if it's uncomfortable for you to do it, you're not really going to be motivated to do it. And you talk a lot about like the importance of staying comfortable and healthy through each trimester. So how would taking like a Pilates or what you teach parents, how would that help them in the first trimester?
What I like to really do, by the way, congratulations on giving birth in those positions. That's amazing.
Oh,
Firstly, I think it makes, obviously we know that's a great way to give birth, because of gravity obviously is helping a lot more. And yeah, you obviously were prepared for that, so it's great. It's what I try and prepare my clients with as well. But yeah, the first trimester, I like to actually teach my clients to think about what they will be doing in the fourth trimester, believe it or not. So even though they're able to do all of the exercises still, during first trimester, most of the time you can still do most things. If you start to learn what you will be learning in the fourth trimester, how your body's going to feel, actually what connections to look for in the fourth trimester. So we do a lot of the pelvic floor connecting. We do certain moves on the back, so that you're learning, certain movements that you will be doing fourth trimester, which you don't actually do in second and third. So it's a really great time to understand that, and then it's easy once you get to the fourth trimester. So that's kind of my methodology. And we teach the pelvic floor connection. We teach, certain moves that are going to help restore the body. So even though I teach my clients to stay fit and healthy in more active movements, we still do the fourth trimester work. In second trimester, my clients usually start to practice then what they will do in the third, so that becomes easier. And most of the work is done on the fit ball, using a band, stretch band, and we start to get comfortable in the exercises for the third trimester. So it's kind of a little formula I teach, which works really well. And the women are really comfortable then by the time they get to third and fourth trimester. They know what they're doing, they know their body. They're strong, they're flexible, and they can even practice at home. I kind of have a great little routine that we do. And I think so using the fit ball is really beneficial, during those trimesters, the second and third, because it gives a little bit more challenge to the core. So when you're in this unstable base of support, like the fit ball, you can then strengthen areas you don't even know you're strengthening. So we can easily strengthen. I'll say that again. Sorry. We can easily strengthen the deep core muscles while sitting on the fit ball. And I think just having, that, like I mentioned before, having the exercises really embedded into the subconscious that you will perhaps use during labor. So you may be kneeling and leaning on the fit ball, moving back and forth, and those moves are great for labor or during the labor. So it really is all about preparing for labor, as well as staying fit, healthy and strong. And we do lots of squats as well with my clients. So I really recommend that. And the fit ball is great to do squats with. It's, putting it behind the back, using that against the wall, is a great way.
You talk a lot, and that totally makes sense, by the way, like practicing the movements before you go into labor, before you have your baby. It's the same thing. Like if you're practicing any sort of breathing techniques, if you're planning on using it for your labor, you don't want to just start doing it when you go into labor. You want to practice it so you have it kind of down pat, especially like building that muscle memory and that association.
Exactly. And we do a lot of the breathing focus as well. So
Nice.
Pilates and yoga does focus a lot on that. So the deep breathing into the diaphragmatic
Mm-hmm.
breathing, making sure, we are learning how to control the mind with the breath, really. So that ability to control the breath helps to calm the mind. So those definitely those practices are really useful, as you say, and good to practice, while you're going through your pregnancy, so that when you get to labor and also even postpartum, you do feel comfortable to use them. And I find too a lot, a lot of my clients actually find they get a bit constricted, obviously, once they in their third trimester. The breathing can be a little bit more challenging if you do have, a bigger baby, or you're a little bit smaller in the torso, that the baby takes up a lot of space. So really opening up through the diaphragm and getting that breathing pattern helps a lot to feel comfortable.
Yeah, 100%. And as a doula, when I would work with birthing parents who their goal was to go unmedicated through the birth, I always stress the importance of having a practice and rehearsed way of regulation, like breathing, because once you're in labor, if you internally start to panic about what you're feeling and the sensations you're having, it's really, really hard to meet your goals of a non-medicated birth, versus if you go in with a really rehearsed breathing pattern or movements that pretty well because you've been doing them through the whole pregnancy. That's going to help you stay calm and centered and regulated, because you can't go in thinking that the breathing is really going to help you with the pain, right? Like birth is it's uncomfortable either way. But if you go in with those tools to keep yourself calm, you can get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And like you say, it's the muscle memory. This is really important. And you almost you can start to default to those then once you've been practicing enough.
Mm-hmm. Going back to what you were talking about, I did have, you mentioned the connection between the brain and the pelvic area. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so actually the diaphragm in our rib area, the diaphragm that we all know about, and mostly and the pelvic floor diaphragm, they actually work together. So as we breathe in, our diaphragm under our ribs actually starts to move in a direction, and then the pelvic floor also moves as well. So as we breathe out, the diaphragm closes and the lungs contract a little, and the pelvic floor also contracts. So it's like this tandem movement, if you like, or wave. So as we breathe in, the diaphragms lower, and as we breathe out, the diaphragms lift. So they do work hand in hand. So the breathing will actually help when you are giving birth, when you are controlling the breath, you are helping to control also the pelvic floor diaphragm. So the breathing as well can be really obviously helpful when pushing, or when needing to control that part of your labor. So yeah, it's important to work on the breath for many reasons, for that one included, but also to calm the mind. As we know, the two are connected. When the breath is controlled, the mind is also a little bit more controlled.
100%. And as a doula, I would often coach my families on that too. Like even just the way that you're holding your jaw, or the sounds that you're making, like those clenched jaw, high pitched sounds, like it's going to tighten up your pelvic floor, make it harder for it to relax and harder.
So true.
So usually, if you're going to make sounds, you should make sounds, whatever it takes to get through that contraction, but try to keep them like really low pitch. Try to open your jaw as wide as you can. Don't clench, keep your shoulders relaxed. And I feel like that helps a lot for me. Before I was a doula with my second, when I was doing the upright pushing, my midwife at one point, because I was doing the whole like thing, and she was just like, I want you to say, whoa, like that. So the whole labor, I was just like,
Great.
whoa, really deep. And my husband was like, what the heck is, but it worked. Like,
Worked.
It worked really well.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's good
Mm-hmm.
advice. Yeah, for relaxing, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
that it relaxes the whole body because the whole body is connected. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to always remember that. Definitely. I love that.
Yeah. Connecting with your bass voice too.
Yes. I'm going to definitely tell that to my clients. That's awesome. I love that one. Yeah.
My second question was fourth trimester. For those out there who might not know what that is, can you describe that?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite times to teach women and to share with women, because I find it's their most vulnerable, and also the time where they tend to forget about themselves, obviously, and that's when they really need to take care of themselves. So I've had many women who have helped a lot through postpartum depression. So obviously the fourth trimester is, postpartum for those women who aren't aware. But I've helped a lot of women get through postnatal depression, and the effects of just a small amount of exercise I find is incredible. On the mind, on the health, obviously, of the mother, the new mum, and also then, of course, the baby. So definitely a passion of mine to help women in this moment. And I find that just helping with a little bit of exercise does, sometimes even change the whole posture, which therefore gives women a whole different outlook. I've had a couple of my clients in one session change their posture and feel incredible, and been very blown away by the changes. So I love teaching women how, just 5 to 10 minutes a day even is enough. If they can do their small hip rolls, or even breathing focus while they're breastfeeding, those kind of things, pelvic floor engagement while they're breastfeeding, all the little bits add up. So it's definitely a time to, I think, focus a lot more on themselves, and often what they get the opportunity to do. So, if as a mum you can squeeze in a few moments, obviously that's not always possible, but obviously it will make big changes.
Right, because it really is hard to find that time, especially after the baby arrives and you're trying to feed the baby and you're emotional and you're exhausted. So I like that you do, I think I saw on your website, you do like 10-minute workouts in some cases. Like,
absolutely.
You have on your Instagram, which I love your Instagram channel, by the way, you have all these like reels with these really quick workouts that people can just do in their kitchen or while they're at the park with their baby or something like that.
Yeah, it's really good to get in a quick workout. And a lot of the women who've done my postnatal program, they have had incredible results. And often I think it's a misconception to think we just need to focus on pelvic floor squeezing as well when we're working pelvic floor. So what I like to combine is a full body workout to strengthen the pelvic floor at the same time. So the program that I actually focus on for the fourth trimester can be started even as early as 4 weeks. So just with gentle pelvic curls, connecting with the pelvic floor, those kind of exercises, and then we build on. So it's about a 12-week program, and it builds up slowly. So it's a great way to also incorporate full body movements as well, because I think just squeezing the pelvic floor is not enough. When we start to work out again as a new mum, getting that full body exercise is important. And yeah, 10 minutes is enough and can make big change. So it's really, really important.
Right. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to families, they'll say, well, I just don't have time because, they read the requirements, at least 30 to 60 minutes a day of exercise. So they're like, well, I don't have a half hour. I don't have an hour. Like the thought of having an hour to work out can seem very overwhelming. And so they just don't, because they're like, well, I don't have an hour to commit to this, so I'm not going to do it because it would be useless otherwise. Where it's these little changes that can make a huge difference, not only physically, but I was listening to another podcast, and I'm sorry to say I forget which one it was, but they were talking about the relationship between movement and stress and why exercise actually does help with stress. Because, the way that our brains are wired, it's meant to be that if you're walking somewhere and you see a lion, you get into fight or flight, you run away or whatever. And then after that movement, that running, that brings you down from fight or flight into a more regulated state. But nowadays, when we're stressed and we're kicked into fight or flight, that movement is missing, right? We don't, unless you purposely do it, you don't get that opportunity to kind of trick your body into thinking that you are away from the danger. And so you get stuck in fight or flight. And that has changed my perspective too on because I'm admittedly one of those people well, I don't have an hour to work out today, so I'm not going to work out. But the point that the other podcast was making was if you are stressed, even just sprinting around your kitchen for a few minutes tricks your body into thinking that you are running away from whatever has stressed you out.
So true.
And helps you calm down and regulate. So if you are stressed as a new mom and your baby's crying and your nipples are bleeding and whatnot, well, get help first, number one, but also, just do a 10-minute thing in your kitchen, look up one of your reels and do one of those. And that will definitely help because it will trick your body in thinking that you have run away and moved away from the danger and help you stay regulated. And that just was a real eye opener for me when it comes to shifting your perspective around staying healthy and moving your body.
It's a great analogy, and we know about this fight and flight, but that part about, tricking the body, thinking you're running away is ideal. And it doesn't take a lot, like you say, to come back into your body, because when we're stressed, we're in our head. We usually are thinking in the future or the past, or, we're overwhelmed. And once we move, we actually reconnect back to our body. So we come out of our head and we're back into our body again. So it is very powerful, and we start to breathe better. All of that in conjunction does almost reset the body. It is like a reset, and it doesn't need to be much. Like you say, it can be 5-10 minutes, because once we get that breathing regulated again, and love it, tricking the body, it's exactly what happens. It's exactly it. And the small increments, they all add up. So I'm the same. If I think I have an hour to do, my days are busy, and, putting that whole hour aside is not always easy. So, but it's easy to put away 10 minutes, and you can get a lot done in 10 minutes. My clients actually often say, wow, that workout can get the heart rate up, can get me strengthened and toned in just 5-10 minutes. So it's very easy to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And even just if partners changing the baby's diaper before you feed the baby, take that opportunity to do some stretching or just move, while the baby's diaper is being changed. I mean, it's only going to take a minute or two, except for the first few times that you're changing your baby's diaper. It feels like it takes forever. But just okay, you change the baby's diaper. I'm going to do a little bit of stretching before I set up to feed the baby.
Yeah, that's it. Finding those mini pockets of time. Mm-hmm. And maybe 5 squats in the shower, if you can manage it, something.
Oh, I like that idea.
5 quick squats, or while the kettle's boiling, perhaps, 5 quick squats.
I used to work at a hospital, and if I was feeling particularly stressed, or even if I wasn't, we were on the 4th floor, so I would just take the elevator. But if I was alone in the elevator, I would do squats while the elevator was bringing me up and down, because it was just I just have all this stress just built up. And I just need to let it out. But I also don't want to walk up 4 flights of stairs.
That's great.
So even doing stuff like you said, waiting for the kettle to boil, or when you're in the shower, because it isn't feasible. There's a lot of prenatal and postpartum programs out there, and I feel like they're not feasible for a lot of parents, because they feel like they can't make the time commitment that they are being asked to make, which is totally understandable. And I also think in today's fitness culture, it's it's kind of like, well, if you can't commit to this much time, you don't really want it, or that people, it's like, I don't want to say shamed, but people are kind of looked down on if they're not willing or able to make the time. Like you hear things like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, if you're home with the, it's like, it's not true. If
Exactly.
you have a nanny, I'm sorry, if there's someone out there that has a nanny, kudos to you. I'm not bashing
Yep.
people, but like, if you have a live-in nanny and you're financially stable and you're feeling great and you have someone that you can just hand the baby, you do not have the same 24 hours in a day that I do.
Yeah. It's different. Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's the part that parents see, is that side of it. And so they're like, well, I don't even want to get into that because I don't want to feel guilty every time I get to the end of the day. And I'm like, oh, I didn't find the time to work out again. So I'm just a failure,
Yeah, exactly. And this is all part of it. Those little increments, those 5-10 minutes, if you can do it, actually will help you feel that sense of achievement. So you will be able to find that few minutes, even if it's not 5, it can be 3 minutes, literally, that helps. So you will start to get that feeling of achievement, and then you'll do it again the next day. You'll find that, rather than feeling the sense of failure, as you say. So it's important, I think, to keep going, and then to keep adding then to your program when you can, is yeah, it tends to happen more often when we do those little bits.
100%. Speaking of setting up for feeding the baby, do you have any suggestions for the new mom backache? When moms are like hunching over their baby to feed, they might be like tightening up their shoulders if they're uncomfortable during feeding, and they just get like all that tightness and that stress here on their shoulders and the neck. What are some things that they could do like right before they sit down while partner's changing the diaper that would help with that?
Yeah, I love the stretch to alleviate pain in the top of the neck, just to bring one arm across the body, literally a straight arm across the body stretches the back of the shoulder area. There's some great stretches to do for the upper body that definitely can help, even like twisting the arms. I don't know if you've seen it, like just threading the arms together in front, yoga stretches, and threading the arms together. So all those opening the back are great. But what I like to tell my clients is to sometimes breastfeed sitting on the fit ball. And so a lot of the mums have had great success with this, because it feels like, you can bounce a little, you can relax a little more. So it tends to also help the baby fall asleep as well. So that's another little tip too. So buying a fit ball for prenatal and postnatal is helpful, not just for the exercise, but also for mums feeding. It's handy. But definitely a lot of upper body stretches. So, really just getting the shoulders back a little bit. So starting to squeeze them back as well will help, because we get into, like you say, that rounded position. Even standing against the wall will help, making the back flat against the wall. So feeling the shoulders go back. That's another nice way just to help kind of undo things, if you like.
Yep. And I think that's extremely helpful, because I think that's the number one complaint that I hear from families is they usually come see me for something else, but almost every parent, while I'm there in their house, or if they're in my office, are saying, well, yeah, I'm always like, how does your back feel? Because they put the baby on like this, hunched over. And I'm like, how's your back doing? And they're like, actually, it's been hurting a lot. I'm like, yeah, let's fix your posture while feeding.
Yeah, you read their mind. Exactly. It's most mums, isn't it? So, even lying on the fit ball with your back over it, sitting on the floor, leaning back over it, will get that nice arch. So the fit ball is my go-to tool really for mums, and you can have it, easily available, in any room. Obviously, it's not a big prop to have. So I highly recommend getting one of those. But if you don't, you can use the back of the chair. You can even arch back over the back of the chair is a nice way. Sitting on the floor, leaning back over the couch, just reversing that sort of hunched posture feeling is very good.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend the ball as well. My third was a tough baby and he cried a lot. And so I spent many hours a day bouncing on the ball with him on my lap because that was the only thing that would kind of keep him calm and happy.
Yeah, it works. Exactly. Yeah.
And it does give your thighs and your glutes a good workout, like bouncing repeatedly like that, swaying back and forth. So
exactly. Oh, that's really good. And yeah, the back pain, I think, is obviously it's a common thing, like you say. Keeping the core strengthened is really helpful. And when we say core strengthened, it doesn't necessarily mean sit-ups. It's not that type of core. It's those lower abdominal muscles. So it's the muscles between the hip bones, the transverse abdominal muscles, which are kind of the muscles that you can help to press, pull in or press in, whatever you prefer to say, when you're giving birth, also during labor. Those muscles are great to help to push against. So it's quite good to have those strong and supporting your back. So this is what we focus a lot in the Pilates, is connecting those deep layers to support your back.
Right, because if you're not doing that on a regular basis, like I imagine what you teach is really helping women become in tune to their body and be more aware of their body. When I saw a pelvic floor specialist after kind of recently in the last 6 months, for back pain, we figured out it's because I wasn't contracting my lower abdominal muscles at all, at all. Like the physical therapist was like, okay, she started at my upper abdominals, was like, okay, contract where I press down. And then as soon as she hit lower abdominals, she's like, okay, contract. And I'm like, I am. And she's like, no, you're not. It's not doing anything. And we had to build up like so much of, again, that brain. My brain was telling it to contract and nothing was really happening because I wasn't doing it correctly.
Exactly.
So working on that alone has helped my back pain a lot. So I imagine that must be really, really, really helpful, because now I wish I had seeked someone out during pregnancy that taught me how to engage my lower abdominals, because I wouldn't be suffering with back pain.
Exactly. And that's it. And that's exactly my point of going back to what I mentioned about the first trimester. So this is when you are, you obviously, depending if this is your first baby or not, but your stomach muscles are going to be probably at their strongest during first trimester, and so you're going to be able to feel that connection more then. So then you know what you're looking for in the fourth trimester. So you felt it at the beginning and all the way through, and then you know what you're looking for in the fourth trimester. So it makes it even easier then. Even though you're going to feel very different in the fourth trimester, where the stomach obviously isn't going to activate as it would in the first, second, or third, but you will know at least how to connect it. Like you say, you were looking for it and you're like, oh, how do I feel this? You will at least have that association beforehand, which is very helpful.
On your website, you have classes, and some of them are for prenatal and postpartum. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you offer for classes and programs?
Yeah, so I teach a lot of women in person. Sorry, I'll start that again. Sorry. I teach a lot of women in person, and a lot of my classes are actually filmed with the clients that I'm actually teaching in person. So we have classes that are with women of all trimesters, recorded. They're pre-recorded classes, and they can be accessed 24/7. So they're available in a library and also a course format. And it basically runs women through everything that I teach my clients face to face. So it's things from yoga, exercises in yoga, Pilates, bar, and also the pre and postnatal journey. So it's really from the beginning right through to the fourth trimester, available online.
Okay. Yeah. I like that it's, on their own time, because we know how important that is for parents and busy expecting parents.
Yeah. And I help a lot of women as well with, I'm not sure if you've heard of diastasis, so healing diastasis recti. So my postnatal program helps women to heal from that also. So I've come across a lot of clients who have been told by surgeons to have operations to fix diastasis. Yeah, so some women have 4 to 5 finger separation, and the program actually does help to heal diastasis. One lady I worked with she's in my program. She had 4.5 finger separation, and we got her down to 2 finger separation in a matter of a couple of weeks. So it's really, really quick. The work is amazing. And we work a lot with the fascia as well. So it's not just the muscles, the deeper layers that actually connect through our body are called fascia. This it's like a tissue that runs throughout the body. And so we work with the fascia as well to help heal the diastasis. So it's quite powerful. Yeah, it's a great program.
Do your classes ever involve the baby? Like, I know there are some classes where you do things with the baby to strengthen. Is that kind of what you do in your classes too, or is it just the parent?
I did a lot of face-to-face classes with that pre-COVID, and unfortunately we didn't film those, but it's something that I have done and love. And the women, obviously still get to work out with their baby. It's a great thing, but I don't do those so much online now, but it's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
Super cute. I love watching those
videos. I love it.
Yeah.
I know. I love it too. Yeah, it's special.
Well, Emma, Jory, this was wonderful. I think your work is amazing. It's so important. I always say that every expecting parent should be hooked up with pelvic floor specialists, yoga, Pilates, and it's a shame that, at least in the US, we're kind of told, oh, it's normal for you to pee your pants for, years after birth, or it's normal to have back pain during pregnancy. It's, because we all know that common does not equal normal. And I don't think it's that providers don't care. It's just that they don't know.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it can be prevented. You're right. And it isn't normal. You're right.
I also think it has to do with the fact that it's mostly women having babies, so no one really cares about women in the US. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the doctors are the men who don't understand. That's right, exactly.
Yeah. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you and check out your classes?
Oh, you can find me at E for Emma, Pilates Online, so one word.com. So epilatesonline.com, and my pre and postnatal programs are there, along with the other programs for non-pre and postnatal. And I'd be very happy if you mention the podcast, if you send me an email to give you a discount for being one of Shelley's listeners. I'd be very happy to do that. So reach out anytime. I'd love to send you a great class to suit your trimester.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I will put links to those and your Instagram as well. Can they message you on Instagram too if they want to sign up?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. That's fine. And it's epilatesonline.com. Oh, sorry, epilates online for Instagram and Facebook.
I love your profile picture on Instagram.
Thank you.
You're just like, yeah, I've got this.
In the splits.
Yes. Very powerful.
I love it. Oh, good. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Shelley. I love what you're doing. And it's a very important work. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.